3 days later, Esther put on her royal robes and entered the inner court just beyond the royal hall of the palace, where the king was sitting upon his royal throne. And when he saw Queen Esther standing there in the inner court, he welcomed her, holding out the golden scepter. So Esther approached and touched the tip, which symbolized her reverence and submission. And I imagine Esther took a big sigh of relief. No guard was going to run her through with a sword.
Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be given thee, even to the half of the kingdom. And Esther said, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that it may be done as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared.
During the wine course, the king said to Esther, Now tell me what you really want, and I will give it to you, even if it's half the kingdom. Here Esther had been worried about approaching the king for fear of death. And yet this guy kept wanting to give her half of the biggest kingdom on earth.
Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said.
So Esther invited them to a banquet to invite them to another banquet the following day. And Haman was a happy man as he left that first banquet. But when he saw Mordecai there at the gate, not standing up or trembling before him, he was furious.
Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself and went home. And he sent and fetched his friends and Zeresh his wife. And Haman recounted unto them the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said moreover, Yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared, but myself. And tomorrow also am I invited by her together with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate.
His wife and his friends had a suggestion. Get ready a 75-foot-high gallows, and in the morning ask the king to let you hang Mordecai on it. And when this is done, you can go on your merry way with the king to the banquet. Friends offer such great advice. This pleased Haman immensely, and he ordered the gallows built.
On that night the king could not sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the king said, What honor and dignity hath been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, There is nothing done for him. And the king said, Who is in the court?
Now, as it happened, Haman had just arrived in the outer court of the palace to ask the king to hang Mordecai from the gallows he was building. So the couriers replied to the king, Haman is out there. Bring him in, the king ordered. So Haman came in, and the king said to him, What should I do to honor a man who truly pleases me? Haman thought to himself, Whom would he want to honor more than me? Some people assume that everything is always about them. And if Haman was going to be honored, he wanted to make sure it was going to be done right.
And Haman said unto the king, For the man whom the king delighteth to honor, Let royal apparel be brought, which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and on the head of which a crown royal is set. And let the apparel and the horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man therewith, whom the king delighteth to honor, and cause him to ride on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor.
Excellent, the king said to Haman. Hurry and take these robes and my horse, and do just as you have said to Mordecai the Jew, who works at the chancellery. Follow every detail you have suggested. Can you imagine how Haman felt when he heard that? Honor who? Mordecai? That irritating, not kneeling Jewish rebel? But it was the king's order, so he had no choice but to suck it up. Haman took the robes and put them on Mordecai, and mounted him on the king's own steed, and led him through the streets of the city, shouting, This is how the king honors those he delights in. Afterwards, Mordecai returned to his job, and Haman hurried home, utterly humiliated. When Haman told his wife and friends what had happened, they said, If Mordecai is a Jew, you will never succeed in your plans against him. To continue to oppose him would be fatal. Just yesterday, the same people were telling him to build gallows to hang Mordecai. Today, they were telling him that he was pretty much doomed. While they were still discussing this with him, the king's messengers arrived to take Haman to the banquet Esther had prepared.